Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another trek through Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We're on Volume 20, Chapter 7. And my gosh, this is going to be a very heated Mushoku Monday. I can already tell. This is going to be extremely heated. So if you don't like all the nyas, there's going to be a lot of nyas. I hope Earthly is not watching this because he says the shots for all the nyas. He's going to be out. But no, very, very heated set of chapters. Really looking forward to talking about it, and hopefully I don't lose myself way too much. But as per usual, greatly appreciate you guys for dropping by for the premiere. Hey chat, hope you guys are doing well. Thank you guys so much for your support, your kind words, hitting the like button. It's free. It's right there. It says, hey, hit me. Hit it. Additionally, greatly appreciate everybody that supports the channel monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, all that good stuff. Last week we had Nakama Forever did a membership and a super, Joshua with a super, Noah with a super, Nicholas with membership, Rose Moist with a super, also did a super for Kusha. So I guess Kusha did a super as well. Sabanasu with a gifted, Inferno Torch with a super, and Jonathan with a super. Thank you guys so much for your support. It means so much to me. But with all that said, let's just dive into it. Chapter 7, Cliff's Homecoming. This will be Rudeus' second time in Milshin, the capital of the holy country of Millis. Last time, he entered through the north gates. He could remember how the river flowed down from the Bluebird Mountains into the lake below. The immaculate white palace floating in the center of the lake. The golden cathedral built by the river. And the silver headquarters of the Adventure Guild a bit downstream. Then there was the 7 towers surrounding the city with a vast plain stretching out below. The view from the south was still as gorgeous. The tall towers and tall castles dominated the view. The castles unblemished silver, glittering in the light. Their shine and size blotted out the view of everything but the walls themselves. Man, there really isn't a city in the world more beautiful than this one. Beneath the surface, there isn't a city in the world more rotten. I promise you that. Cliff's sights were set on the White Palace. After all he had been through, that beautiful castle loomed over him. Of course, he was here to go to war. Honestly, to Rudeus, the Aisha kingdom was far more rotten underneath its facade. Ariel and all the nobles' hearts were plenty riddled with decay. Then again, the Aisha kingdom's surface was rotten. They didn't even hide it. So that probably made Millis the worst of the two. I actually do think that's kind of interesting, the idea that, yes, technically they're kind of out there in the open about that in Aisha Kingdom, like how nasty they are and what they're doing. I mean, that whole meeting with Ariel kind of, taking over the throne in that room was just kind of like, they didn't even hide anything. They weren't hiding much in that room. And yes, how everybody kind of knows how the royalty are with certain things. They don't need to hide it, really. But Millis, yes, you would assume they have to hide it because they have their beliefs and all these rules they follow with the beliefs, so they have to act like they're not doing all these nasty things because they're teaching people not to do those nasty things. So whatever you see on the surface, underneath is going to be where that nastiness is. So Rudeus is like, well, no, I think Aisha Kingdom's worse. Oh, wait, they're kind of open about it. So yeah, I guess this can be worse. So Cliff, I know you're a genius, but come now. We're past that, aren't we? Right. Just, if anything happens, feel free to talk to me. Rudeus had way less pressure for the moment, so he wanted to clear Cliff of his burden. Anything, no matter how small it was. In that case, could you start by taking this carriage to my home? It shall be done, your future popeness, sir. That day, Cliff returned to Milshin, his former home that he had been away from for almost a decade. Milshin had 4 entrances. One the Adventurers District, Residential, Divine, and Commercial. Last time, Rudeus entered through the Adventurers District, on the south side. At the time, Rudeus recalled that it was due to out-of-towners being a headache if they entered elsewhere. They did the same thing this time, opting to go the closest entrance and not being picky. It honestly would have saved time if they traveled around the city, rather than going through the sea of people inside. But Cliff wanted to see the city, since he had been away for so long. Passing under the Millis' beautiful gates, Cliff murmured to himself about how it took him back. He was born in the Divine District, so he hadn't visited the Adventure District much. Still, he looked up the gates, as if he was projecting a personal memory. I guess I could assume that's probably when he went out there for Edis. I mean, it never implied if he ever went there again after he went there in order to go out hunting with Edis. But it was probably like one of those, not that he's recalling like, oh my gosh, I loved Edis. It's more of like just recalling the easier times, the peaceful times back when he could just run out and go do an adventure rather than worrying about his future. Reese only had been there for a month, and his only memories involved Paul. Of course, he could get a little emotional if he thought about it, but nothing else had any particular resonance with him. Looking around, he didn't see visions from his past. He only saw the future. He saw the mercenary band he would build. There was a lot more beast folks, elves, and the like here than the Aisha Kingdom. The ranks of the adventurers ran the gamut, but you could tell who was at what level at a glance. Boys and girls, 15 to 16, scurried around while equipped with second-hand armor. There was a beginner rank, clad in brand new armor, who looked to be 18. A mid-rank in his 20s, whose armor seemed worn down, but there was a mix of magic items and higher-class goods. The spread of adventurers' paths was fairly varied, but given that they lived at the foot of the Mills Church, there was plenty of healers and few mages. By contrast, the magic city of Shariah had a lot of battle-hardened warriors and plenty of newbie mages. The warriors were more or less headhunted from the University of Magic, where they would find promising mages who were eager to become adventurers. Race-wise, Shariah had a lot more human and beast folk. The abundance of beast folk was likely related to Linnea and Prasenna's long presence there. Meanwhile, Ars, the capital of the Asura Kingdom, was full of newbies. The variety of schools meant that one job didn't particularly dominate over another, but racial makeup was mostly entirely human. The few non-human races were typically at mid-rank or veteran, and they left for the royal capital soon enough. That last line is, I think, possibly incorrect there. The idea here is obviously he's showing how different every area is, which is, yes, kind of interesting that Millis, the holy country of Millis, has a lot of beast folk and all these other races there, which makes sense because you have the great forests right there, and then of course beyond that you have the demon continent. But again, it's kind of more pointing out to individuals that aren't considered demon, which again, beast folk and elves and stuff like that, they're going to have a lot of them because they're going to be flowing again from that great forest. But yes, when you go to other regions, he's pointing out specifically, like, yeah, Shariah technically, it has a lot of beast folk, but that's probably because Linnea and Prasenna, they were coming up there for the mating season, trying to get after them or whatever. They're going to have a lot of warriors and stuff up there because technically the northern part of the central continent has much more tougher monsters. That's why they were talking about way back in Volume 7, that they were coming up there because there's nothing to fight in the central continent, like the middle area, because it's very peaceful. There's not much mana or monsters kind of growing out there. So yeah, for Asura, not much to do. But it's kind of interesting that he's saying specifically that, yes, it's mostly human there in Asura, but people that were more like mid-rank or veteran would soon leave for the royal capital. I'm thinking that's supposed to be left the royal capital because they would want to leave there in order to find challenges and improve themselves. Plus, they already talk about Ars, the royal capital, so I don't know, it seems weird. But I do like that difference of each of the races and locations and how much there's more here than over here, and typically why they're in those regions. Refugin has actually thought about races and population and all this kind of stuff for his different regions, which is really cool. Millis' variety in races and expertise likely stemmed from its proximity to the Great Forest. Well, it started talking about it there. It provided fresh blood from beast folks, elves, halflings, and dwarf races. The city gave adventurers opportunity to prove themselves, after which they would travel north to challenge strong monsters in the Great Forest. However, the Great Forest didn't have an adventurers guild, so they made their bases either in Melshin or Zantport. It did Zantport, all in one word. As a result, the city's Venture Guild headquarters hosted adventurers of all stripes. This kind of makes me believe, because Rudeus is bringing this up right here, possibility he's probably going to put a mercenary band in the Great Forest. He can probably get the approval from them. It could be most likely that they don't have an adventurers guild in the Great Forest, at least anywhere around individual races there, because maybe they don't want them there, which pretty much, again, opens the door for Rudeus. Hey, free game, free population right there that we can work with. While thinking of how Rudeus would establish a mercenary band here, he recalled in the Asura Kingdom having connections with Ariel. That made everything go smoothly. That country had 3 specific groups: swordsmen, merchants, and nobles. He had commoners who failed at being swordsmen, soldiers, or lacked a mentor. People raised in merchant families with some small amount of study and trade, but lost the succession in the family shop. Sons of lower noble families who were educated on subjects, while having no hope of succession or marriage. Stitching the diverse lot of people into one team, they had serious connections. They became the one-stop shop for jobs that Salders couldn't take. That Salders couldn't take on. Salders. I guess they're trying to put 2 things together and they're trying to solder it or something. God, we're this far into this volume already. Jeez. Almost done. Salders. Yep. Salders. I can kind of get why this wasn't picked up if you were using some sort of autocorrection. Shops for jobs that Salders couldn't take on. Oh, damn, 7 Seeds. Sometimes, at least this one's funny. At least this mess up is funny. This volume, God, is somebody keeping count? This volume has been horrible. They became the one-stop shop for jobs that soldiers couldn't take on, I'm guessing. Rudeus promoted the 5th son of a high-ranking noble family to direct the branch there. Ariel had introduced them, and the interview was a trip. Aisha and Rudeus put on fake triangular glasses and asked him what he'd been doing for the 2-year gap before joining the interview. His response: he was concealing his identity and actively engaging with commoners. It taught him not only about the differences in cultures, but about the importance of deeply understanding each and every partner you work with. His answer was so perfect, Rudeus had to take notice of him. It's a very good, I mean, again, if he did this, that's huge, but that's a good answer. That's a really good answer. I mean, that's always been like the most annoying question to have to answer in interviews. It's like they always ask you, okay, well, you have your resume here shows that you've been doing this, this, and this. What is this right here? And it's like, screw you. None of your business. It's like, none of your business. I mean, I understand the idea that you can essentially fall off from your trade And it is kind of a curious thing to kind of find out what you're doing there. But yeah, in a lot of cases, whenever I've had gaps, it's like family or something like that. You know, yeah, my dad was dying. Thanks for asking. You want to know more? I could tell you what I had to do. It's like what none of your business. How about that? It's always been the most annoying question. But yeah, it's good to have a good answer for it, I guess, if it has to be asked. In practice, he was pretty skilled at holding a group together. He knew the differences between nobles and commoners' culture, inside and out. So when disputes broke out inside the band, he was the guy who'd understand both sides while finding a solution. He wasn't exactly a magnetic personality, but he was the kind of guy that people never hated. Rudeus knew that he could definitely handle it better than he could. Yeah, that answered my question right there. I was talking about this last Mushoku Monday where I assumed this is going to be the point which Aisha is going to run into a problem with the mercenary band, because before she kind of mentioned the fact that she doesn't get along with people because they keep making mistakes. And it was always Linnea and Priscilla that would come in and talk to the people off the side, and they would come back looking better. So she would get really onto them, get really angry at them, and then Linnea and Priscilla would kind of soften the situation. So I was kind of thinking, okay, this is going to be the point where she doesn't have Linnea and Priscilla with them, and so something's going to come up. Like, it's going to finally blow up in her face. But then I was like, wait, they were at Asura Kingdom, and they set that up. And they didn't imply that Linnea and Priscilla were there. Well, this answered that question. They had this guy do that. With Asura in capable hands, now was Milshin. Rudeus and Aisha were busy eyeing the place. Aisha held off planning anything until she'd seen it. They would be visiting the other districts before setting anything in stone, and they hoped to get better info from the locals because they knew the place better. I didn't notice last time I visited, but there's sure a lot of different races here. It's because the Great Forest is so close. Looking around was halflings, looking barely 10 years old. Elves with spindly limbs that reminded Rudeus of wilted trees. There was a variety of beast folks, from dogs, cats, rabbits, deer, mice, tigers, wolves, sheep, and bears. There's a whole bunch of beast folks there that I didn't even think were there. I think so far, we've pretty much been like, yeah, they imply there was bunnies. We've seen cat, we've seen dog, and then the gorilla, Goliad. I think that's all we really shown. Oh, with the bird one. We had the bird one, but that's a demon folk. So beast folk specifically, I don't think we've ever seen deer, mice, tiger, wolves, sheep, or bears. Interesting. That kind of expanded the beast folk races like crazy in my head. Random thought Rudeus had. When a beast folk guy looked at a farm animal, did he feel a little spark? No. They probably felt the same way that humans did about a monkey at a zoo. Just an animal. He's like, man, there's all these races here. Man, I wonder if they get turned on by a random farm animal. It's like so wrong. It's going to probably be like humans, where there's going to be some people that probably will be. Oh, wait, don't stand up so. Glancing back, Zenith was standing on top of the cart. Despite the rocking of the carriage and Aisha hurried attempt to sit her down, Zenith continued pointing at something ahead. Her finger was aimed at a monkey? No, a monkey-faced man. Rudeus had never seen a monkey like beast folk. Maybe monkeys were rare in this world. Rare enough that Zenith pointed at one with joy. There's like so much like frustration and sorrow in one moment right here. Like on one end, it's like, I'm so happy that Zenith is so happy to see Geese. Like, she's literally like, it's my old venturing buddy. Like, there's even a side of me that almost thinks like, with what she's lost, she could have been sort of reset back to maybe when she was much younger, maybe back when she was adventuring and stuff like that. And so to see Geese, it's like yesterday. I was with Geese, traveling into a dungeon with Paul and everybody else. So like right here, I'm getting emotional because literally Zenith responds to something. If you want to get Andrew to cry, literally all Refugian has to do is say Zenith did something, and then Andrew gets all emotional. But yes, at the same time, there's Geese. Here we go. Looks like the man god is going to be involved in this place. Ain't no doubt about it. I don't know. Maybe Geese just passing by. Maybe Geese just happened to be here. Maybe Geese just, he came here with Tauhan. It's just nothing to do with the man god. Damn it. Damn it. And then what he says in passing, that's what bugs the fire out of me. I don't like that. I don't like what he says at the end. What was my voice for him? Yo, it's Zenith and the boss. What brings you all the way out here? It was a demon. Not any demon. It was Geese. Geese immediately hopped on the carriage like he owned the damn thing. He seemed pretty happy to see them. Grin stretched from ear to ear. Some of that joy rubbed off on Rudeus. Woo! Who'd thunk we run into each other all the way out here? Coincidence is a crazy thing, I tell ya. Wait, what'd you guys come all the way here for anyways? Half work, half family. Ah, yeah, I feel that. But listen, you ain't gonna believe what I've been through. I'm talking tearjerker from start to finish. Geese began to recount the tale of what happened to him after he departed from Shariah. Geese, Talhan, Viera, and Shira had all arrived in Osra Kingdom, just as planned. There they cashed in the absorption stones for a massive sum of money. Viera and Shira used that money to retire from venturing. They presumably returned to their hometown. Geese lost track of him after that, but given the money that they had, he figured they'd start a business or something. Probably just, open up a scroll-making business. They did the scrolls. As for Geese, well, in a not entirely unexpected twist of fate, he got addicted to gambling. Reese wasn't too familiar with it, but the Ostran Kingdom apparently had a gambling district that Geese soon became regular at. Geese always had a bit of gambling streak, but the fortune that he had now had took the limiters off. In a matter of months, Geese had managed to blow every single coin to his name. I don't think that's true. I think he invested that money into something else. I tell you, things were getting hairy back then. They even took the shirt off my back. Only thing I had left was my life itself. While Geese would have soon been sleeping with the fishes, Talhan saved him. Talhan decided it was about time for his next adventure. Peeking in on Geese before he set out, he was dumbfounded by the mess that Geese got himself into. In the end, he sold off his freshly forged gauntlets to bail out his old party member. Those were gauntlets made of the stone of absorption too. Combined with his research costs, they represented Talhan's life savings. Now they were both flat broke. The high cost of living in Osra was suddenly too expensive, so they set out to the south. I wonder where those gauntlets went. I mean, it could be like any gauntlet has that embedded into it, but it sounds like it, at least right here, it implies the idea that it took some cost to make them into gauntlets. Now, it could be that the entire thing was made of the actual absorption stones, whereas Randolph's was that it had it embedded into the palm. So this could be a completely different gauntlet, but it's kind of curious for them to bring up a gauntlet specifically that he sold off. I wonder. I'm surprised that Reese didn't bring that up. He's like, wow, what did it look like? Reese would have never stuck his neck out for someone that bad money. You did for Linnea. You did for Linnea. I guess not his life saving. That's the difference. Much less travel with him afterwards. But Talhan and Geese went way back. So maybe that was how it went between them. Like, maybe Geese had been the one saving Talhan's hide in the past. That's friendship for you. Talhan's got his back. Plus, I don't know, maybe Geese swings that way too. Who knows? It never has really implied Geese's swing. Sharon was going through some internal strife that they didn't want to get involved with. And given that the King Dragon realm was rumored to be contributing to it, they decided to skip straight to Millis. Sometime after that, Talhan struck off by himself, leaving Geese all alone. Geese thought that he probably returned to his own hometown. What's a guy like that thinking? Going home of all places. Reese could understand. It was homesickness, similar to the illness Nanahoshi had a chronic case of. You gotta bring up Nanahoshi. A long journey could make one want to see their family again. Are you not going back, Geese? Who, me? You gotta be kidding. What am I gonna do in a boring backwater village? Watch paint dry? Reese was personally a homebody. Only there could he find his wife's chests. Sylphie for restoration, Roxy for luck, and Edis for time skipping. As per usual, whenever Reese thinks about his home, he thinks about touching his women. Nothing really else. I mean, I ain't alone. That guy had some bad memories or whatever from his hometown too. Then maybe he wanted to go back and settle the score. No matter what might have happened in the past, time changes you. Things you could never forgive in your teens might be things that you can accept in your 20s. By your 50s, you might not even care anymore. Talhan might have compartmentalized that old stuff in his heart and went back to see his home as a different person. Well, enough talking about Talhan. I've been back in the adventuring biz here. Sadly, Geese hadn't found business yet, on account of him being a demon and having no combat prowess. Yeah, that's always been his problem. I mean, they even talked about that when they first broke up. I think when Rudeus was traveling with Geese, he kind of mentioned the idea that Geese was, a little bit upset because that was his party, and he couldn't really find anybody else. So once that party broke up, he was alone. He couldn't find a new party or anything because of his situation. He's extremely helpful. Like, Geese has some really good skills. He has knowledge. I mean, the whole thing with the teleportation labyrinth, it's just that people can't be sold that very well when you're at the guild or something like that. So, boss, what brought you this neck of the woods? Well, you know the state of my mother, so her family called her over to see her. I was traveling with a friend here, so I figured I'd drop by. Ah, Zenith's fam, huh? Geese looked at Zenith with what seemed to be pity. Zenith's expression was blank as ever, but she somehow seemed to be in higher spirits. She's happy to be with her old party mate. Probably because Geese was here. Well, I've heard a bit about the kind of place that Zenith family runs, and let me tell you, it doesn't sound like my idea of fun. What exactly have you heard? I don't know the details, but I hear they're a bunch of stiffs. Geese shrugged. Whoa there, we're almost to the district line. Sorry, but can you stop for a second? Demons like me don't go to the Divine District if we know what's good for us. Stopping, Geese hopped off the cart. Yeah, That makes sense. Again, Divine District being probably where all the religious folk are. Probably a lot of temple knights. You don't want to go over there. Well, I'm going to be sticking around for a while, so don't sweat. You ain't seen the last of me. Keep on keeping on, boss. Back turn, Geese waved his hand as he walked. Before long, he turned and faced them. Boss, can I ask you something? What is it? You remember what Paul said back at the dungeon? A few things came to Rudeus' mind, but only one rang out from his heart. He assumed that was what he was talking about. Yeah. Hearing that, Geese seemed happy and turned around. The acquaintance, who appeared suddenly, disappeared just as quickly. Rudeus wondered if their reunion was in fact coincidence. I kind of hate that chapter even happened. I really, honestly, gonna be truthful, I hate that Geese chapter happened. Again, that could be something that, because Refugium may have felt like it'd be more interesting to put it here because you can start piecing things together now, but still, it kind of sucks. It didn't matter. Rudeus was happy to see his old friend and shake off some nerves. With that in mind, they continued to Divine District. So, I hate the fact that Rudeus didn't at least think what that comment that he thinks Geese is talking about. But the only one that has sort of an ominous aura about it, a statement that Paul made in that dungeon that Geese would have picked up on, that would have, I guess, mattered at this point. At this point, would it mattered? Save your mother, even if it kills you. So yes, my suspicious mind of yes, assuming that Geese is here because of the man god, because obviously, by all accounts, unless I'm completely off base, Geese is working for the man god based on that one chapter that was obviously Geese. If he's here for the man god, he's brewing something up. There's no other reason for him to be here. Especially because of that chapter sort of laid it out as if he's doing a lot of things for the man god, like he is setting something big up. For him to turn to Rudeus and state that if he's there for the man god, it makes me believe that he knows that Rudeus is going to get involved with something the man god is putting together, at least he's putting together for the man god, and it might involve Zenith. So there might be something here where he knows that Zenith is going to get involved with some sort of conflict, or at least she's going to get wrapped up in it somehow, probably the Latria family themselves getting wrapped up in it, and he knows that Zenith is going to be in danger of some way and to get involved. Or is a possibility the man god told Geese a way of helping Zenith? That would be interesting, and it could be a way of throwing Rudeus off. Now, this comment could have nothing to do with the man god and his plans with the man god. He could just strictly be saying this because he knows what the family of Latria is all about. He says briefly like, yeah, I know a little bit about them, but he could know a lot about them. There ain't no doubt. I don't know why Geese would not know everything about the Latria family. He's been there before. He's good at information and getting info together. He's probably right now having to dig into every single family in Millis right now. So he's got to know about a lot about the Latria family. And so knowing that Rudeus is going there with Zenith, he knows that Rudeus is not going to like what Latria says, or at least Claire says. And so he's saying that to Rudeus, probably because he wants to remind him, protect your mother, even if it kills you. Protect your mom, because you're about to have to protect her. You're going to have a choice. He knows that he's going to have a choice. Protect your mom. Because he knows damn well what Claire's going to say the moment they get there. So it's like, if the man god's not involved, and it's literally Geese saying something really cool right there and saying, Rudeus, you protect your mom, because you're about to go in some bad territory. But yes, the other side could be, is it him hinting at something? And I think because, again, slight spoilers here for the chapter 8 that we haven't gotten to yet, based on the fact that Rudeus didn't recall that quote, makes me believe it's going to be something else. Because I would figure if Refugium wanted to call back to this statement right here, he would have brought up that quote right at the end of chapter 8. I don't like it. I just don't like it. Reaching Cliff's house, the sun had already set. Cliff's house was a lot plainer than expected. It was a single building home that looked to cozily fit a family of 3 or 4. It didn't stand out as the Divine District had rows and rows of identical houses. But Rudeus assumed the Pope's house would have been a lot more like Ariel's. It's pretty small. Rather than getting angry at the comment, Cliff graciously explained. People of the cloth who serve the main church are all provided homes like these, though my grandfather has a room at the headquarters, so this house doesn't get much use. I appreciate you escorting me home. It's rather late, so please, stay the night. Since it would take some time to get to Zenith's home in the residential district, Rudeus decided to take him up on the offer. Showing up in the middle of the night in travel clothes and not being emotionally prepared wasn't ideal. As they opened the front door, a puff of dust swept out from inside. Achoo! Aisha sneezed adorably after the scent prickled her nose. This is awful. Grandfather didn't so much as clean this place, I see. I'm not sure if it'd be enough to thank you for letting us stay the night, but we'll help you clean up, by which I mean Aisha will. Oh, much appreciated, Who, me? Aisha let out a bewildered voice, while Zenith shot Rudeus a scolding look. Well, Zenith was expressionless, but Rudeus could feel the intent in her gaze. He wasn't sure why Aisha would give him looks. He would never order her to clean something alone. Well, never mind. He did that all the time. He appreciated it, really. Yeah, I was about to say, when he got to this point, I'm like, what are you talking? Oh, okay, he corrects himself. Hey, it's clearly a joke. Of course I'll help too. As you should. They ran through the house and cleaned it. While Cliff and Rudeus did their share, Aisha finished the majority of the work. She went 3 times as fast as them. The red comet. Aishar Asnar Blorat. It's like Shar Aznabal, but with Aisha and Grey Rat kind of all mixed into it. It's kind of weird to actually say. Like, I read it, and it makes perfect sense when you read it, but like when you read it out loud, it's like Aishnar Asnar Borat. It's Borat. Following this, they sat down for a light meal. Congrats on making it home, Cliff. Don't celebrate too early. Not until I've met with my grandfather. What will be your plan tomorrow? First, we visit House Latria. I see. Will you stay there tomorrow night? I think we probably will. While not having the most generous reputation, Claire was Zenith's family. There shouldn't be a problem with them staying there for a while. Rudeus had work to attend to, such as setting up the mercenary band branch, and keeping an eye on Cliff. So staying at Latria home would limit his freedom a bit, but he had to go there first to be sure. Worst case scenario, Rudeus would say hi and find somewhere else to stay. Yeah, it didn't last long. I'll need to hire someone to cook then. Well, how about I send Aisha over once every couple days? Y'all have enough work on your plate. I have someone else in mind anyways. Shouldn't be anybody that we know. Pretty much everybody that we know of right now are already in Shariah or Ostra Kingdom or somewhere around there. And Randolph just randomly shows up. Randolph just randomly shows up. He's like, Cliff just spotted him in the crowd or something like that. I don't know why Randolph's just in the area. And Cliff knows who he is. They were given the guest room. 3 people in a tight space. Aisha and Rudeus were full-grown adults, so they gave Zenith the bed while they slept on the floor. When Rudeus set his head down on the pillow and rested on his side, he found his eyes met Aisha's, who had apparently made her bed next to his. She giggled to herself. Think Miss Sylphie would get jealous if I told her that I slept with you, big brother? Come on, we've done this plenty of times on the road. Yeah, but, you know, still. She enjoys sleeping with company, so she couldn't hold back her giggles. What an adorable smile. If she were Sylphie, he'd have found himself getting horny and pulling her in close. But he wouldn't get horny over Aisha, and she didn't have the urge to snuggle into his arms. He loved Aisha, and Aisha loved him, but it wasn't a relationship he had any sexual desire over. If he had to describe the sensation, it was something quite similar to how he felt for Lucy. Familial love. Like wanting to slobber her thighs. I still hate that stupid comment that they did on that one chapter. You just want to slobber her thighs like you did to me last night. No, I wouldn't. Yeah, I could do that. She's so cute. It's like, that's so nasty. But yeah, it's like, this is one of those annoying moments because I don't understand how his mind goes this direction. So think, this is what bugs me in this segment right here. He says specifically, I laid down, I open my eyes, Aisha's there, make a comment, she giggles, and she looks cute. She's so adorable. Her smile is so adorable. When I think about situations where I'm taking care of somebody that I have no attraction to, somebody that is a completely innocent situation where you're laying next to somebody that you have no desire for, the last thing I think of is, oh yeah, if I was with this person, man, we'd be all over each other, horn happening. That's not what a normal person thinks. But yet here, it's almost as if his mind gets pushed in the direction of, man, if this was Sylphie, we'd be doing it. Well, if you have no sexual desire for her, then why are you thinking about a sexual desire? It doesn't make sense to me why his mind immediately goes to replacement sexual desire as a comparison. I don't really care much for that kind of train of thought, I guess. It's almost like purposely teasing it. If that's not your desire, then why are you thinking about it? It's kind of like, I know a dumb example here, but it's kind of like the whole situation with Erased. I think I've brought this up a couple times with my Mushoku Mondays. I just think it's a really good example. Again, with Erased, when the anime was airing, at some point the mother takes this girl into the bath. And she does it as a way to kind of remove the barriers of communication. They both get comfortable with each other in the bath. And that allows the girl to kind of open up to the mother. And I watched the episode. I thought it was a beautiful episode. I cried so much watching that episode. It was a beautiful episode. And I'm looking online like, crap, I wonder if anybody else thought this episode was great. And then suddenly I see all these people saying that it was, oh my gosh, this is sexual. And it's like, again, you found that sexual? Then that's a you problem. Stay away from children. It's kind of that whole, like, why does your mind immediately go in that direction unless you kind of want that? I think if a mind goes that direction, it's obvious that there's a desire there. It's very questionable. Anyways, side tangent. I know it's kind of out of the blue, but what do you think now about what Lily has always been telling you? What my mom's always been telling me? Which thing? You know, like serving me or servicing me, stuff like that. Again, here, why are you bringing this up? Now, I like that this is being brought up because it's finally demystifying this whole thing. And there's a side of me that actually I kind of like this. But there's still that problem there is like, why are you bringing this up? Why? I would understand if in Rudeus's mind he's going, I kind of want to get this sussed out. I kind of want to get rid of this misunderstanding that's always been happening. I would understand it if he was bringing it up for that purpose. But he's not bringing it up for that purpose. It's almost like he's just trying to figure out, man, I'm not horny. Is she horny? It's like, God dang it, dude. Aisha looked surprised by the question, but she then brought her hand to her chin to consider it more deeply. I mean, I'm not opposed, but like, it's kind of different from Miss Sylphie. Like, well, I'm not sure what it's like, but no, I get you. You're right. It's just kind of different. It was all subtext, but Rudeus felt they more or less understood each other. They had to fill out each other's meanings. Aisha giggled. Glad you understand. This is why I love you, big brother. Aisha wriggled her way towards him and pressed her body against his. She was soft and warm, truly a fine hug pillow. As Rudeus was enjoying the sensation, Aisha asked something else, as though the thought just came to her. I wonder, will I fall in love with someone someday? I want to have children of my own? This is probably what was different from earlier. Good question. Well, why not? But who would be with... Rudeus thought, who would be Aisha's lover? Yeah, he couldn't imagine. Would he be perfect about everything? Or totally useless? Aisha could probably fit her way into any partner. But Rudeus couldn't see her liking someone she had to change for. Who did Aisha normally spend time with? The mercenary band had a lot of beast folk. Aisha with that pack of wild animals? No siree. He wouldn't give his little sister to whatever the cat dragged in. If Rudeus asked Orsted, he'd probably tell him what kind of partner Aisha married. But he'd refrain from that. He'd feel bad if he said that she ended up as an old maid. That said, he had something to do before bed. Alright. Let's get into this. Let's get into this. Yeah, this is the massive question mark. And okay, starting things off. Again, my thing has always been kind of stuck on how Aisha has always been, again, kind of groomed by her mother to love Rudeus and to want to serve Rudeus and to be what Lilia was to Paul, be that for Rudeus. Be the maid that he'll eventually marry and get with and all this kind of stuff. She was just emphatic about how amazing Rudeus was and wanted to be with him. She's always looked up to him, and she always had this love and admiration for him, that the assumption that was that, yes, she was always going to be the maid, and eventually at some point he'll finally open up to her. I actually like the idea that eventually at some point, it seems like it's indicating it here, Aisha has finally realized, I don't really need to be with Rudeus. What I feel for Rudeus isn't necessarily what I want. I've always been raised that way, and eventually at some point she grows up and realizes, I mean, he's great, and he's amazing, but he's my brother. And at some point just realizes that she doesn't have a physical attraction for him either. And eventually we'll move on. And yes, it is technically kind of pointing that out. It's different than Miss Sylphie. You and Miss Sylphie have is different than what I have for you. She doesn't know what it is. But it's sort of implying that it's not like a physical attraction. It's not like what Sylphie is with you, which I'm kind of curious what that means to her. Is it a physical thing? Is she saying it's different than you and Sylphie physically? But then why would she always constantly say that she wants to go to bed with him? If it's different than Miss Sylphie, then why does she always say that? Unless she's just teasing him, messing around with him. Maybe she doesn't really want that, but she just says it because that's what Lilia told her to say. Again, Lilia kind of told her how to do that stuff, taught her how to do that stuff, was getting her prepared to do that with Rudeus. She says like, well, I'm not sure what it's like, but he says, no, it's fine. Because he's equating it to what he's going through. That she is just strictly a sister. That he finds her adorable, finds her so freaking cute, and yes, sees that she has grown up to be a very beautiful woman. But he doesn't feel physical attraction. So he's assuming it's probably the same for her. She thinks that I'm handsome, great, all that kind of stuff, but is not physically attracted to me. Again, I kind of like this, because this does show to me at least that she's no longer needing that. And that's always been my difficulty with Aisha, is that I knew that Rudeus was never going to accept her physically, and my assumption was that she was so groomed to want that she just wants nothing else but that. And that was going to mean that she was going to grow up to be a very lonely person, never having love. And that hurts. I mean, she's going to have love, just not the same type of love. Not like a love between a man and a woman, but a love between siblings. So she'll have plenty of love, but would it be the love that she wants? So when he clarifies, yeah, that it is kind of different, she's like, I'm glad you understand. That's why I love you, big brother. I still kind of hate that he asked that question. And again, I'm fine with it if he just wants to see if he can clear up the air around it and make sure that she's not still wanting that. And then later on she says, I wonder, will I fall in love with someone someday and have children of my own? But the question is, what is she looking for? And that's a sad reality. It's kind of like the situation that Norn had, where she was always being compared to Rudeus, and that was hurting her, being compared to Aisha, and that hurt her. I wonder if Aisha could be possibly comparing possible love interests to Rudeus. Well, they're not as great as Rudeus, so I can find somebody else. There's also difficulty that she could face with that, in that she'll never find somebody like Rudeus. They have to be perfect, just like Rudeus. They're not as special as Rudeus. But at least this does give a sign, will I find somebody? She's not saying, will I find you? Will you ever accept me? Will you ever give me a kid? She's saying, will I find somebody to love? Will I find somebody to have a child of my own? That's the sign there. This has seemingly finally broken off from Rudeus, that she finally is looking for something. And again, I think that could have been a lot of what she was thinking about that entire chapter, that she is now an adult and she has to find somebody. It could have been literally what I was thinking about back then. Could have been completely true. So this kind of technically falls in my theory, if you think about it. That back here, Aisha was going, I'm an adult now. Rudeus doesn't seem obviously attracted to me. I can't keep doing this. I need to find somebody else. I need to move on. I need to be an adult. And it starts to make her think, is this where I want to be? Where's my future? Will I ever find love? Will I ever have a child? And then you have Artis there with her, and she's going, I want to have a child now. All these things are now popping into her head about being an adult, being a parent, having love, and all that kind of stuff, and suddenly realizing, and again, this kind of shows it, I got to stop this thing with Rudeus. Like, I got to start actually looking for somebody. It eases my heart a lot. I'll just say that. That line, I wonder, will I fall in love with someone someday and have children of my own, still leaves the door open, obviously, but at least is a really good sign that she is at least looking to move on from Rudeus, which I think is great because she's been breaking my heart for a long time now. This girl has had a very screwed up raising, and I blame it mostly on her mother, and here recently mostly blame it on Rudeus not kind of pushing her away properly, but there you go. I like how he points out Orsted, though. Like, I could ask Orsted, but what if he says that she's like an old, alone maid or something like that? Well, it's technically not going to be the same as that world. Again, you weren't in that world. Aisha, we're taking my mom to her family house tomorrow. So what'll you do? Aisha moved out of his arms and took her distance, returning to where she once was before. I'll go. Mom didn't make it sound optional. I see. Yep. Hearing Aisha would be there put him at ease. Tomorrow, he'd be visiting Zenith's home. He'd be going through the usual pitch and making connections. But the thought of going to such a high-class place, all alone, made him antsy. Well, I appreciate the help. Don't worry. I got it. Seriously, you're a lifesaver. And thanks for cleaning tonight, too. Anyways, good night. You're welcome. Good He listened to Aisha's sleepy muttering as he closed his eyes. Again, good chapter. Great introduction to the place. Hate seeing Geese. A little heartbroken at Zenith's response to Geese. And I'm really happy about this later part because, again, it does show me that Aisha could be moving on. And my gosh, I want this girl to be happy, and I just know she's not going to be happy next to Rudeus if he doesn't care about her that way. But let's get into it. Chapter 8. The House of Latria. I feel like I need to take a break. I might take a break just before we get to the part. Zenith's family home in the residential district was huge. Massive white mansion with a large gate, pair of lion statues flanking either side, long cobbled walkway to the front door, large fountain, and hedges trimmed to weird shapes. The houses in the area were homes of particularly well-to-do, pretty similar to the Ashra's wealthiest residential district. Cliff's home caught Roos by surprise, but this was spot on to what he thought it would be. It was similar to what he had back in Ashra. While he wasn't bragging, it meant that he wasn't really afraid. Really. Aisha sighed next to him. She looked at the mansion with disdain. They stood before the gates, Rudeus and Zenith in fancy clothes, while Aisha in her maid outfit. I really hated when I read that because it's solidified later, and I don't know why it popped in my head, but literally it's the idea of like it goes out of its way to say Rudeus was in fancy noblish clothes. Zenith was in a dress. They were both looking fancy. Aisha, maid outfit. And I immediately thought, you're presenting her as a maid. And then sure enough, it comes up. A person of maid status should stand where a maid should be standing. He literally just said, he literally had her dressed as a bullet, ammunition for Claire to use. It's like, now reading this a second time, it's like, Damn it, that you screwed up already right there. You screwed up already right there. I mean, it makes sense. She's always wearing that. It's her duty. Lilia would do the same thing, but Lilia would... I don't know. He would probably want Lilia to sit too. I'm starting getting mad. Stop, Andrew. We're not getting to the mad part yet. Rudeus tried to show the man at the main gate the letter that he received, but he bolted to the mansion the moment that he seen Zenith's face. So, big brother, just warning you, but Grandma's really not a fun person to be around. Yes, I heard you the first time. The warnings were getting to him. Still, he believed that he was vaccinated against awful people. He was a nightmare in his past life, after all. Pretty much anyone around him would be a delight in comparison. Even if she was someone that he couldn't stand, they could still talk about Zenith's condition. Right. And mourn what they would... I hate this already, reading this. See, there is benefits to doing what my process, because I know that some people want certain... Like, I heard a couple people wanted me to live read this one. There is actually benefits to me reading things a second time, because it's like, gosh, I catch all these things that it's like, gosh, dang it, mistake. It's like, you know, the train's coming now. They can still talk about Zenith's condition and mourn what they'd lost together. Anything beyond that might be too much to hope for, but that would be enough. There's a side of me that this is the same thing that he said after Paul's death. That sucks. After Paul's death, the way that Rudeus put it was that he was waiting for Zenith to wake up so that they can talk to Zenith and they can mourn Paul's death together. And that's what hurts so much about that situation, is that when she finally woke up, she wasn't there. And so this is what he was hoping for. He just got done. He's in this state of grief about Paul. And then he's like, yay, Zenith's awake. Now we can cry together. This'll help. We can mourn together. Same thing with Zenith's mom. He's hoping that they can mourn together. Ugh. A large contingent of men and women streamed out of the mansion. 20 men and women in total, maids and butlers. The maids lined up on either side of the walkway beyond the gate. In front of them, a butler faced them, straight as a rod. It was a precise guest reception formation that you would see in an anime. They pulled this all the time in the Austria Kingdom too. When the guard opened the door, the butler and maids bowed their heads deeply. Lady Zenith, we humbly welcome you home. All of us, in our hearts, awaited this day. While they bowed to Zenith, her face was as motionless as ever. Her eyes didn't even focus on the serpents. Now then, Sir Rudeus, the madam awaits. This way, please. Very well, thank you. Undeterred by Zenith's lack of response, the butlers greeted Rudeus before turning his heel and guiding them. He didn't say a word to Aisha. Did he assume that... Why would they respond to her? She's in a maid outfit. He didn't turn and talk to any of the maids that were all like... Did he assume all people in maid outfits were maids? Maybe Rudeus should have had her wear something else. Something a bit more sister-like. A frilly dress or something. Probably would have been a good idea. Inside wasn't as lavish as the Austrian royal castle or Pedagus's castle, but it was furnished in classy stuff. Now then, please wait here. In the reception room, there was a pair of sofas facing each other. A maid stood against the wall. Considering everyone was awaiting this day, there sure was no sign of the madam herself. Sitting down with Zenith, Rudeus noticed Aisha still standing. Aisha, you sit too. Huh? But, I think I should stand. You're my sister, so you should be a guest here. Come on, take a seat. Okay. Aisha followed his suggestion and sat down beside Zenith. For a while, they waited, without a word between each other. Times like this reminded him of when he went to that interview at Philip's place. Saros had burst into the room, shouting his lungs out, and left without further fanfare. Kind of eerie how similar it was. He just hoped that today went as well as that day. How did he handle that? He recalled taking the initiative and introducing himself. He figured that introducing yourself first was polite in any world. So, he had to try that again. This way, madam. Finishing his thought, the door opened, and a tense-looking old lady, blonde hair streaked with white, entered the room. Following her was a portly, mustachioed middle-aged man, wearing something like a lab coat. Rudeus stood, lifted his hand to his chest, and gave a casual greeting. What an unparalleled pleasure it is to meet you, grandmother. My name is Rudeus Greyrat. I've come today so I may... The lady didn't so much as glance to him. She swept past his introduction and made a beeline for a good view at Zenith. She stared intently at Zenith's face, inspecting her from a footstep away. Rudeus envisioned a heartwarming reunion. But Claire's stony expressions shattered that fantasy. Finally, she exhaled, speaking in an almost icy tone. This is indeed my daughter, Ander, if you'd please. With that, the man elbowed past Rudeus, took Zenith's hand, stood her up, and put his hand to her face. Wait, hold a moment. Mind telling me what's up? Oh, my apologies. I'm Madame Claire's personal physician. and Berkeley. A pleasure to make your acquaintance. I'm Maria's Grey Rat. You've studied medicine? Yes. I was originally here for my scheduled checkup of Madame Claire, but she said to have a look at her daughter while I had the opportunity. So Grandma Claire must have gotten a bit overwhelmed seeing Zenith like this. Maria's got to understand. Sure, you've seen some sign already that shows that, right? Well, if that's the case, then please take care of... Who gave you permission to sit? Suddenly, a scolding voice bellowed from behind Rudeus. Rudeus tensed involuntarily from the shock, turning to see Aisha frantically standing from the sofa. A mere maid does not remain seated while her master stands. You were not raised in a barn. My apologies. Aisha bowed her head despite being on the verge of tears. Rudeus was caught off guard. This was going all too fast. Claire was treating him like he was invisible. He could have started crying too. Bad time for a joke, Rudeus. Bad time for a joke. Again, fuck. Like I said last, Mushoku fuck. She may be wearing a maid uniform, but she's my sister first. I'm having her tend to our mother's needs, so she simply chose to wear something practical for that kind of work. I'm afraid it's unacceptable to treat her as only a maid. One dresses for the station they deserve. In this house, those who dress as maids will be treated as maids. Reese thought, screw this house's rules. Well then, how would you treat someone in clothes like mine? I would treat you appropriately, of course. Should I assume that your idea of appropriate treatment is a complete disregard? Reese inspected himself. He wasn't wearing anything strange. He was pretty sure that he got them from Soraya. Maybe he should have worn some that he got from Asra. Yeah, after she just constantly just rags on that backwater city or whatever, probably would have been best. No, I delayed my response because you were a man that I never met before who swanned in and called me grandmother. There have been no dearth of swindlers doing the same thing the past few years. I first determined if you're worth my time by verifying the truth. Ah, well, it was common knowledge that this big fancy manor had a runaway daughter. It was no surprise that people came in claiming that they were lost relatives. Reese might have introduced himself, but he hadn't presented proof of his identity. These clothes weren't embroidered with the Grey Rat family emblem. Since anyone could do that, she had a point. I can see that. Yes, I can see. This is logical. This is the real Zenith, to be sure. And I remember Aisha over there quite well. But do you have any proof that you are my grandson? Proof? He brought Zenith, Aisha, and the letter. What more could she need? But why did he have to prove himself to begin with? Is that necessary? Pardon? I brought Zenith and Aisha, and I even provided a letter I received from you. What more do you need? Claire's eyebrow twitched in response. If that's all, then I'm afraid I can't recognize you as a member of the House of Latria. Very well. I belong to the House of Grey Rat. I'm a head of that household, and today is my first time ever setting foot in this property. I have no intention of asserting myself as a member of the House of Latria. For the sake of the mercenary band, he'd like to be an ally of it. But if the other party already held him with suspicion, then he would need to play his intentions closer to the vest than he had planned. His first priority was to bring Zenith home to her family. Claire didn't seem to appreciate his answer. Her eyes narrowed, and her brows twitched with pent-up tension. For the head of the House of Grey Rat, you present as Tawdry. Grey Rat is one of the 4 great houses of Asra. As distinguished as the House of Latria may be, we are merely a courtship. Yet you would give your name first, and lower your head, not even to the Count himself, but to the wife of the Count? I have the blood of one of the great 4 houses, but not from the main branch, nor do I have any titles. While I call myself the head of the household, that was merely to say that I'm the main provider for an ordinary family living in Soraya. And of course, even if I did possess some sort of high status, I feel it only natural to show some respect when meeting my own grandmother for the first time. Is that so? It seemed his explanation only made her look down at him more. I mean, it's good. It's a good thing. I think so far this flow, yes, is showing her suspicion, which I completely understand. I hurt a lot that her first reaction to Zenith isn't emotional. But again, she's walking to a room with at least one person that she doesn't recognize. There's a maid there. There's a doctor there. She has to present herself with her status. So far in this encounter, I feel she's asserting status, which is technically, in this setting, important. But yes, it does break my heart that she doesn't react really at all to Zenith at first sight. I would assume any mother would be destroyed seeing their daughter that way. But again, all she can think about is lineage and her responsibility. So probably the moment that Zenith left, she was dead to her. And that sucks. But that's kind of what they're pegging her as right here. Rudeus right here, I think it's good. He's asserting himself. He's saying why Aisha should be sitting there. I think he could have been more stern with that, but he's kind of giving a little bit here. He's doing well. But additionally, he's not putting himself on a pedestal. He's saying, this is my status. I don't have that much power, but I was still presented with my grandmother, and I was showing respect. But yes, obviously that's going to make her look down more. You don't have any status, and you're going to talk to me? No, it couldn't be that bad. But then again, this person placed family lineage on a high pedestal. It was going to be a pain, but he decided to give himself a line of defense just in case. This is actually bold. This part is Actually, very bold. But again, it's good. Shut her up real quick. I may have no rank as a noble, but I do have personal relationship with Her Majesty, Queen Ariel, who was crowned ruler of the Oscar Kingdom just last year. I myself am also a subordinate of the second of the 7 great powers, the dragon god Orsted. I would prefer if he took those stations into account. Not that he needed to be taken seriously, but her interaction to Aisha changed things. She needed to consider Rudeus equal, or at least something close to it, to be any kind of use to him. Claire pursed her lips, raised her chin in response. She looked Rudeus over, as though trying to decide what he was worth. This is the proof of being Dragon God's subordinate. Rudeus brought out his bracelet that had the Dragon God's emblem. After looking it over, Claire turned to the butler and spoke to him in a hushed voice. He nodded and whispered that it was indeed the Dragon God's. Rudeus didn't even think the Dragon God was particularly well known, but the butler seemed to recognize his emblem. Apparently the butler's a little bit studied. She got, okay, I can't know all this stuff, so I'm going to turn to my butler that knows all this stuff. It's good if you're in that kind of position that you have somebody with brains next to you that knows a little bit more than you do. I see. Understood. With that, Claire squared her jaw and brought her hands together around her stomach. Then, in one natural motion, bowed her head. My name is Claire Latria, wife to the commander of the Temple Knights Sword Company, Count Carlisle Latria. I'm currently tasked with management of his mansion. I ask that you please forgive my poor manners. Shut up real quick. Obviously, it's the Dragon God part, because it doesn't really indicate at all her reacting to Ariel. It just kind of goes straight into the Dragon God part, and then she questions the Dragon God part. So it almost feels like this response is just the Dragon God part, because she doesn't ask for any proof about Ariel. She might know about that, but based on the fact that how this conversation plays out, the only thing that she really knows about Rudeus seems to be about Cliff. That's it, which is kind of surprising. I figured she would know that he had multiple wives. I figured that she would know at least, him being acquainted to the Dragon God. She doesn't seem to know anything but Cliff, which is very interesting for him to know that. I guess, obviously, somebody spotted them traveling together, and they said, oh, that looks like Zenith. Zenith's here, and Cliff is in there. Again, how they would know that's Cliff. It's been a long time since Cliff has been there. For them to pick that up is kind of interesting. The assumption there is that they probably seen Zenith on a cart going to Cliff's house. The Pope's house, basically. But yeah, talk about the second of the 7 great powers suddenly shuts up. Suddenly straightens up real quick. Definitely shows you how powerful that man's name is. Which that was kind of indicated way back when Nanahoshi was talking about traveling around with him, and that his name got her pretty much everything she needed. He either proved his identity, or his attitude overcame some sort of hurdle. He got Claire to lower her head and apologize. A commander of the Temple Knights, huh? Zenith's little sister, Therese, also marched in those ranks. This family sure held deep ties with them. Then please, allow me to introduce myself again. I'm Rudeus Greyrat, son of Paul Greyrat and Zenith Greyrat. I'm currently working as subordinate of the Dragon God Orsted. Don't worry about what happened before. I failed to perform my due diligence myself. I think your caution was perfectly warranted. He's feeding back into her. He's at least, again, kind of, I got a little high up here, but I'm going to come down a little bit for you. Both bowing, the matter was good as settled. Maybe he could finally catch his breath. Now please, take a seat. Certainly, thank you. Reese did as she told him, and sat down. First, let me commend you on a long journey. I had assumed your voyage would take a few more years, but I'm quite thankful for your swift arrival. Clapping her hands, the door opened and a cart was brought in. A tea party? That was fine for Rudeus. He would blow her out of her seat by his explosive technique that he mastered at the floating fortress. Before that, he let Aisha sit. She wasn't a maid. She was a sister. He couldn't have her welcomed as anything less than a guest. So, he had to be firm with this. Aisha, you sit too. Huh? But you're not a maid today. You came here as my relative. So please, sit down. Aisha glanced back and forth to Claire as she slowly settled into her seat. Poor girl is so uncomfortable. It's like, there's one side of it that, like, just let her be there because she's going to be obviously uncomfortable, even sitting. It's like, it does prove something. Like, this is a win. Aisha, sit. She sits. It's a win. You just proved you are my sister to this lady in front of us. But at the same time, Aisha's so uncomfortable. She's like, just let me stand, bro. Just let me stand. I don't care. This isn't something I care to win. Again, I'm already getting into it. This whole conversation is such a massive boost for Rudeus in my eyes. Like, this is a massive W Rudeus chapter, by the way. This shows Rudeus. Rudeus is so passive. He's so gives into things so easily. When there's an issue, give. And it's a good thing. He's kind of like me in a lot of regard, where, like, sometimes it just doesn't matter. Like, an argument. Let him win. Who cares? Like, in the end, it's just not worth it. The argument's just not worth it. The conflict is not worth it. I'm very much like him that I'll just say, you win. Okay, congratulations. moving on with my life. But there's points where sometimes you just gotta fight. There's just times sometimes when you gotta fight. And this is a chapter where Rudeus finally fights. And it has to do with family. Whenever Rudeus is always passive until it comes to family. Suddenly out of nowhere, it's not about me. If he came to this house and he was the only one in there and Claire was being mean to him, he probably would just say, sure, fine, yes, you win, congratulations, yes, here's your trophy. But no, Aisha's involved. Sit down, Aisha. She's gonna sit next to me because she's my sister. She's not a maid. She's my sister. She's your granddaughter-in-law. Treat her like that. And then, yes, later on with Zenith, this is my mother. She's not I'm already gonna do it already. She's not a oven to make your babies. She's not just an oven you stick buns in. Fucking hell, dude. Claire didn't say a word, only responded with a twitch of her eyebrow. It looked like she was gonna let it go. But of course, I should belong to a family after all, so it wasn't Claire's place to allow or forbid. I mean, technically in her house, she can make whatever rules that she wants to make, but still, in this conversation as guests in the guest room, there's a little bit of formality there. Glancing over to Zenith, she looked like she was still being inspected by the doctor. He was now looking at her eyes and her tongue. He probably wouldn't find anything wrong there, but no harm in trying. Claire probably wanted the doctor that she trusted to look first, before believing a stranger that Zenith had lost her memories. Done her best to try to heal Mom, but we haven't had any luck. Well, I can imagine how some backwater town had very few options. Those were fighting words. What was she calling a backwater town, he thought. But of course, Reese anticipated that she'd say this sort of thing. Shirai's healing magic might be a tad less advanced than Millis, but I had her looked at by Orsted, a man familiar with every branch of magic there is, and Pedagoose, an expert on teleportation and summoning. Pedagoose? One of the 3 legendary heroes? I'm not sure I find that plausible. But Orsted's okay? He just said that he knows Ariel, helped her on the throne, knows Orsted, but Pedagoose is going to be the big question mark? She has no clue what happened in Asura. That kind of boggles my mind. It has been a long time since everything that happened in Asura, and you're telling me they have no clue what happened there? Word had to have gotten out what happened beyond those doors. I don't see that. That is super weird. Unless Ariel kept that super hush-hush. But there was a lot of people involved. How did all of them keep that hush-hush? That's weird. I'm sorry, that's weird. She should know what happened there. They should have known Pedagoose walked those doors, was involved with Ariel getting that throne. Everybody should at least know that Pedagoose was backing her. That was one of the big reasons why she won the throne. Why would she not know that? And if she accepted that he was connected to Ariel, that would make sense. It's connected. He figured that she wouldn't believe him. That said, he couldn't exactly pack him in his bags for a family trip. He was only riding his coattails anyways. Either way, he intended to stay in Milshin for a few months. Plenty of time to accept there was no treatment for Zenith's condition. He just hoped that they wouldn't insist on trying anything drastic before reaching that conclusion. Yeah, that was my fear there. Oh, we have some people with like really high healing magic. That's where I think he probably should imply the idea of like even Orsted implied not to use what he has mastered in healing magic. Incidentally, what of Norn? He was hoping they would stick talking about Mom a bit longer, but Claire suddenly changed it. Yeah, she's just... he kind of notes it, but she's just rapid fire. And I think that comes with her position. Like, she just keeps him on his toes. Like this. She is not letting him take the flow of conversation. Which technically comes with somebody of authority. Like, she's used to this. She's used to being in control of every conversation. She is currently enrolled in the Renault University of Magic. She's quite busy with her schoolwork, so I left her to continue her studies. Is that so? I was under the impression that that girl was a born failure, but she's making something of herself? She's doing fine, yes. She's currently the student council president, so if anything, she's the top of the school. Yeah, already another jab. Just another little quick jab in there. I thought she was useless. He may have spun a little bit, but Claire seemed surprised. He didn't expect her to think that poorly of Norn. Guess he could see that if he compared her to Aisha. Again, right here, he's still trying to give her something. I like this. Again, this is something that I kind of do too. Give the benefit of the doubt. Don't ever assume maliciousness. Okay, she's being a little harsh there. It's fine. Just kind of a little reply there. It's fine. Yeah, okay, that was a little bit harsh. It's fine. Until eventually it just kind of boils up. I see. What is her plans after graduation? She hasn't decided yet. What of marriage? I'm afraid she's a stranger to romance. Claire's face scrunched up in response. Did he say something to offend her? In that case, she will come home once she graduates. I wouldn't be opposed to that, but I can't imagine she'd find a half-decent suitor in a backwoods country like Renault Kingdom. So I'll arrange an appropriate match. You mean to say you'd make Norn marry somebody? That's exactly what I meant. If she has no future set and the head of the household isn't settling the matter, then I'll take on the duty myself. Whoa, hey, hold on a second. Shouldn't you be asking Norn's opinion first? What are you talking about? Is it not the head of the household's duty to ensure the woman of his home marry? Rudeus looked to Aisha for an answer. She simply shrugged. Her attitude seemed to say, yeah, kinda. Again, that's just normal here. It sucks, and it's really tough to take, but that technically is how they function. It's like one of those things where, like, it's really hard to accept a lot of things that she says, but it's like you also sort of understand it's how they run things, and it's kind of hard to push back. And Rudeus has always kind of pointed that out. And again, this is one of those kind of examples of that Rudeus always gives. Rudeus always gives. He always passive, always neutral about situations, constantly going, I'm not going to get involved. Slavery, don't get involved. It's just normal here. And this is one of those rare examples where it's suddenly like family's involved again. I don't like this. Pushback. I don't like this. Pushback. It's family's involved now. Maybe this was how nobles in the holy country of Millis did things. Right. Even in his old life, there was a part of society where parents decided who their children would marry. It never really made sense to him, but it might have been more common than he realized. But he didn't run his house like this. Of course. If Norn told him that she wanted help, he set her up on a blind date. But outside of that, he wanted her to be free to do what she liked. I'll take responsibility for Norn's future. He said it to make it clear. I see. Very well. You are the head of the house, so I expect you to do your job. Biting condescendence. She seemed to like to use that a lot, didn't she? He could feel how she was looking down on him. He had to keep it together. This was all par for the course. Besides, he wasn't going to change her. That's the key thing there. It's like, again, it's like the whole thing with the slave trading thing again. It's like, it's not like you can walk in that door and be like, stop, you're trading. Like, the people just expect he's going to be able to go in there and say, you need to stop this. It's just not going to work. They're not going to suddenly turn and go, you know, he's right. He's so right. It's just like her. You can't just say, hey, stop treating her like you can marry her out. Rudeus, thank you so much for saying that. You are so right. I'm never going to do that again. Thank you, Rudeus. I never thought about that before. It's just a sad reality. You can't just expect people to accept your way. Especially, again, this is the culture. This is what these people have grown up in. This is what these people have been taught their entire lives. This is normality. It's a sad, sucky thing, but it's normality. This is their culture. He knew that she'd be difficult. Besides, he wasn't going to change her. Objecting to that would only start a fight. Something that they'd never see eye to eye on. This was their first time meeting each other, so they had to start by understanding each other first. He can make his requests after that. I think that's the best way to be able to get through to somebody. Is to know them first. You can't just throw things out there when you first meet them. And again, I think there is an aspect of not accepting this, of course, but there is an aspect of sometimes people see things a certain way, and you can get to know them, and you can understand their point of view. There's a lot of cases where I've had disagreements with what somebody says, but just knowing them, I understand why they came to that conclusion. Again, I might not agree with it, but I still understand why they think that. And sometimes it's a good thing. Because sometimes it'll come to a point where you go, you know what? I won't even ask you to change your mind because that seems obviously the choice for you. I believe I've finished. Andrew returned with Zenith. Aisha sprang into action to guide her to sofa. How was it? Her body's a definition of health. So healthy that she looks younger than her age. Reese thought, nice going, Zenith. Younger without so much of a skincare routine. But was that a bad sign? Something to worry about? Like a side effect of the curse? Hold on. Sucks I can't do this without taking off glass first. Face bomb. I guess I could do that one. Again, another Rudeus. Are you suffering some kind of mental thing? You know why she looks younger. She didn't age in the crystal. And now they're finally seeing her and they're like, holy crap, she's much younger for her age. It's the crystal. She was embedded in the damn thing. Now, as to if she has not aged since the moment she came out of that crystal, that is a question mark. That is technically a question mark. And even Reese right here is saying, is that a bad sign? Something to worry about, a side effect of the curse? Again, if she has not aged at all since leaving the crystal, I can understand him questioning this. Is there a curse within her, possibly keeping her from ever aging? But if it's simply the fact that she's younger, it's because she was stuck in a crystal for like 6 years. Rudeus, stop forgetting things. It drives me crazy. I have a few questions for the family. May I? But of course, ask whatever you like. Very well. First, his questions covered all the bases. Physical health, what she ate, servings, exercise, time of the month, how independent she was in everyday life, habits, any self-harm, so on. All doctorly questions, so Rudeus didn't hesitate to unload everything he knew. Aisha would step in when needed to provide further information. If Lilia was there, they can give a fuller picture, but they did their best they could. Afterwards, Andrew nodded, took notes, and went to Claire before the two of them murmured something between themselves. Well, yes, I believe there will be no problems. As long as the personal maid attends to her, at least. There's no sign of illness or injury. Her state of mind is stable as well. What of fertility? She's had her time of the month, so I presume she's capable. Here he starts. This would require a few more attending to her, but it should indeed be possible. Wonderful. What was wonderful about that, Rudeus thought? He got the feeling that he wasn't going to like this. Nope. If I didn't know any better, I would say that you sound like you're planning on having my mom remarry. He intended that as a joke, but the look in Claire's eyes when she turned to him was ice cold, yet incredibly strong-willed. It was a look that demanded obedience and wouldn't take no for an answer. Here in the holy country of Millis, a woman's worth is decided by her ability to bear children. Those who cannot are sometimes not even seen as human. Wait, pull back a bit. She didn't deny what he said, but no way, right? He had to calm down. She didn't deny it, but she didn't confirm it. She just stated the typical beliefs of her nation. He's even still here, trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. So Rudeus, and so me, trying to go, she just said this. It's not like she's doing this, right? Even though they just discussed this between the two of them, and she stated this, she can't mean this, right? Nobody would possibly see someone less than a human because they couldn't give birth. It just sounded believable because it came from such an authoritative old lady. Before I forget, you two, cut ties with that papalist priest. I'm aware the two of you are acquainted with a papalist priest. Another change of the subject. Rudeus was starting to get disoriented. Maybe it was Claire's blunt tone that kept him from taking control of the conversation. Or maybe greeting her first backfooted him. This was her territory, not his. Again, I think that she's so used to that, just taking it. It comes with like massive confidence. She is bred, raised, and in this house, she is the pure embody of confidence. She has no reason not to be confident in that house. This is her land. This is her domain. Rudeus is the epitome of lack of confidence. Rudeus has no confidence. So it's no surprise that he's going to get completely rolled by somebody that is the pure embodiment of confidence. True, I do have an amicable relationship with Cliff, but why would it be necessary to cut ties with him? The House of Latria currently operates on the side of the Cardinalist. I forbid you from fraternizing with the Papalist. Cardinalist meant demon expulsionist, Rudeus thought. It made him wonder who the top cardinal was. I mean, I have no intentions of aligning myself with the Papalist, so would that not suffice? No, I forbid it. If you were to stay at this house, then you will follow the rules of this house. Again, this is where I'm kind of wondering, she knows Cliff then? Well, she's saying specifically, I forbid you from fraternizing with a papalist. She's never stated Cliff's name. And so I'm assuming that's because they went into the Divine District. So they were seen going to the Divine District. So the assumption is that if somebody spotted Zenith was on a cart and she was going into the Divine District, not that they know who Cliff is, this strictly that he went into that area, he's obviously acquainted with somebody there. So I guess it's a good thing that she doesn't know Cliff. Rudeus would probably end up aligning with the Papalist once Cliff had obtained some status. If she was aware of his plans and trying to gain leverage over him, he could potentially be a bit more understanding. But he got the feeling that that wasn't where she was coming from. Again, I don't think she even knows who Cliff is. That's the interesting thing. It does show that she has kind of a lack of information there. She probably doesn't even know the severity of that. That's the key thing. Cliff had been a great help for me back at school. I'm certain Norm would say the same. Surely a simple friendship wouldn't do any harm, no? Unacceptable. If you insist on fraternizing with a papalist priest, then I shall not allow you to stay at this house. No dice then. That was fine. He'd stay the night somewhere else. He wasn't angry, not even a little bit. Tranquility was his middle name. Nothing to fuss over. For now. For now. He'd been told over and over that this was the kind of person Claire was. He was prepared for this. It might not have been within his calculations that she'd butt into his personal friendships, but they were like cats and dogs. They couldn't get along. That's all there was to it. Now to give his goodbyes and leave this house without starting a fight. Yep. Here it is. There it is. Tranquility, Andrew. Like Rudeus said, tranquility is middle name. Tranquility. My middle name is Andrew Tranquility. Andrew Tranquility Otaku Spirit is my name. Whew. Leave Zenith and be gone at once. I called that one at least. It wasn't immediately. I admit it wasn't immediately, but damn did I call it. Damn did I call it. I was sort of right. Rudeus' mind suddenly went blank. To be clear, I will permit you to enter the premise of the mansion in the future, but ultimately as a stranger to this. What do you mean leave her here? What do you mean by that? Claire cut herself off, looked at him, and answered with an icy glare. Given what has become of her, I have no other choice. She might only be this, but if she can bear children, then marriage is still an option. Rudeus' mouth went dry. His peripheral vision blacked out. It was like he was being blanketed in a dark mist. The thing that sucks so much and pisses me off so bad right here is that she has not shown any emotion this entire time, which again, I was trying to give her credit for up until this point. But this shows that aspect of completely dehumanizing Zenith. This is the point in which it feels like it's completely dehumanizing her. And this kind of goes in line with what was happening earlier with Norn. With Norn, it was basically saying, well, okay, I'll find a husband. That's all we do. Like she said, our value as women in this country, in this culture, is we pop out babies. If we can't pop out babies, we have no worth. That's all we do. And that's technically, again, that's to this culture. I understand it. It's so dehumanizing, but it is their culture. I understand that part, but it is sad that there wouldn't be an ounce of respect for your daughter who's obviously not in her right mind. And again, this isn't different than really a lot of lineages of like royalty and stuff like that. Like they'll marry off their children for power. They don't care what the child thinks about who they're going to get married off to. It could be the scummiest prince in another nation. But as long as they can make connections with the other kingdom, they'll send their daughters off to these nasty individuals to make a connection. It's normal. It's completely normal. They're just bread makers. It's just, here you go, put a bun in the oven. We'll be good friends then, right? That'll help us politically and we won't have to fight each other all the time. They don't care what happens to the daughter. It's super freaking sad. But to have her daughter in such a... To be even worse, to have the daughter in such a broken state and make these kinds of decisions for them, that's where it gets disgusting. That's where it gets super heartbreaking. She might be like this, but if she can bear a child, then marriage is still an option. She might be broken. The doctor, Ander right here said, yeah, we'll just have to kind of carry her around a little bit, but yeah, she could probably work. I mean, once she gets pregnant, it's probably going to take a little bit more... It's going to be really hard. We'll probably have to have somebody like jump on her stomach or something like to kick it out or whatever. But maybe just have her jump up and down. Just strap her up and just swing her up and down. We'll get the baby out. That's disgusting. As somebody who has been caretaker for somebody that has decayed to death, like their mind has decayed to death, every decision that had to be made for them, like thankfully early on we got power of attorney for them, but like every decision that you had to make, it felt bad. It felt bad that you had to make decisions, financial decisions for them, close down their bank accounts, write out things for them, like everything that you had to handle for the individual. It felt bad. It felt like I was getting into their privacy. Like I shouldn't be doing this. The thought of even saying, okay, I'm going to ship them off to somewhere to marry somebody else, that. It doesn't make sense in my brain. It just doesn't click. It's like, I could totally try to understand these people, but I just can't. I just can't. Yeah, after this part, for those who don't know, I typically change things to being third person when I'm summarizing these chapters because mostly for quoting sake. Like, it's very hard to kind of go from Rudeus saying something to going into his mindset without kind of doing that. Because sometimes you won't be able to tell what I'm actually quoting and what parts are actually his inner thoughts. So the third person kind of helps it. I didn't change anything after this. Rudeus' mouth went dry. His peripheral vision blacked out. It was like he was being blanketed in a dark mist. What the f*** are you talking about? Someone shouted. It was me. I was shouting. No way. You were just saying the beliefs of the nation, right? Did you actually mean that crap? Or... So the shouts continued, except the words didn't come out. My mouth went through the motions without emitting a single sound. I'll have this girl marry a cardinal noble. It might take a few divorces, but we should find her a permanent match. It makes me hurt for Zenith. Just think about Zenith being in the room. And if she could possibly know what she's saying. It's like, it sucks I don't know what Zenith can understand. Claire would force a person who couldn't even communicate her own opinions into a marriage. Claire would say that her own daughter was only this, as though she was just an object. Her good health is currently the silver lining. I've never heard the sound of a blood vessel bursting. Of course not, because it wasn't audible. It was just a cartoon sound effect, a figure of speech. I might have imagined that I heard it whenever I got Edis mad, but since I typically blacked out shortly afterwards, I couldn't remember much. Today, I heard it. No question. The next thing I knew, the sun had set, and I was pulling Zenith along by hand. The next thing I knew, the sun had set, and I was pulling Zenith along by the hand. I didn't remember much after what happened after that sound. I recalled absolutely hollering, but I was foggy as to what I hollered about. I knew for sure that insults from far outside my daily vocabulary had been flowing out of my mouth. I remember Claire's eyes widening. I remember the maids peeking in to see what the commotion was. I remember declaring that I would leave, pulling Zenith up by the hand. After hearing Claire having the nerve to say, "You shall not. If Zenith were sane, she'd agree." Those words were throwing oil into the flames. That was my heart, burning down what remained of my self-control. I clenched my fist and prepared to cast a spell. That was what I remembered. But just then, I heard Aisha say, "Sikamoni-chan." This is the only part that got... It's like, it's so funny that Rudeus is so pissed. I'm pissed as I'm reading it. I'm so f***ing pissed. This could not go worse. I mean, it could be worse. But I'm pissed. Rudeus is pissed. And then Aisha just pops up and says, "Sikamoni-chan." And then Rudeus says, "That brought me back some of my senses." Because yes, it's funny the thought of like Aisha of that, like, "Get him." She's like, "Yeah, get him, Rudeus. This is what I want. Get him." Oh, it's so great. Kind of brought me back a little bit. Claire had already called some guards by now, so I blasted them away, shouted that the house of Latria was dead to me and mine, and bolted out. They found themselves at the border of the Divine District. Rudeus' rage made it feel like his vision was spinning. He never imagined that he'd hear something that loathsome with his own ears. He thought, "Son of a silver lining my I shouldn't have come. I could have gone my whole life without hearing that. Who died and crowned that old bat king? Like, look, anyone would feel a little grossed out if some guy you've never met called you his grandmother. Don't feel like responding to my first introduction? Sure, don't. I could even understand that stuff about getting Norn a husband. I heard that the rich and powerful arranged marriages in my old life, too. They were just doing what was expected of their class and culture. Fine. Yeah, got it. But what she said about Zenith was way over the line. My mother had amnesia and couldn't even take care of her own basic needs. What is wrong with someone who would even consider of marrying her off and talk about her good health, about how it was a silver lining that she had her time of the month? You'd have Zenith marry so that she could be nursed during the day and messed with at night? Yeah, I knew what that was called. A human sex doll. And if she got pregnant, then what? She'd give birth? You really think she'd be capable of that? Even if she could, where was Zenith's consent in all this? Hell, what about my feelings? How do you think the children she'd leave behind would feel? What do you take a man's mother for? What do you take your own daughter for? Was your own daughter a tool to you? Just a thing to be used? A baby-making machine? Don't even joke about that. I couldn't remember the last time something made me this mad. Claire, my ass. Go stuff yourself with cream, you French pastry. Arriving at such a bizarre insult had calmed him a little bit. I often disagree with Rudeus a lot, which is great. That's what I think makes this series great, is that you can disagree with main character. You can find faults in them. I always like the idea there's this expectation that if you enjoy this series, you agree with everything that Rudeus does. No, I think the thing that makes this series so great is that you can disagree with him. And so I do. Like last Mushoku Monday was pretty harsh on Rudeus about, sticking Aisha in this whole mercenary band stuff, especially at her age. Massive Rudeus W here. I agree with everything he says here. And it's like, speaking from experience, this stuff, I could never, again, imagine seeing it this way. That a mother would be so willing to say out loud, "Well, good thing she's good at health. Yeah, she still got her time." Because that's literally how it felt. Yep, that's her. Check her out. Yep, she looks good. She got time of the month? Yep, she got that. So she can have babies. She already knows at this point, this girl is out of it. She knows that. Rudeus gave her a letter. Say, yeah, we found her in this crystal. I'm assuming that he said that part. She lost all her memories. She's got this trauma. She lost all her memories. She's not even questioning that. And so the assumption here is that they fully well know that, I mean, Rudeus mentioned this before. Ellen Lace and all them mentioned that. Talhand, Ellen Lace, and Roxy, I think, in their meeting on the Barrier Continent, they said literally, there's no cure for this stuff. You can't. You just don't. And Ellen Lace herself was like, yeah, there's no cure for this kind of stuff. It happened to me. Orsted, no cure for it. You can't. It just, once they mentioned several times, poisons, all that kind of stuff, things that mess with the brain, you can't cure it. It's done. And she probably fully well damn knows that. She fully well knows, okay, he sent the letter, looks like it, she got no expression, she's not even responding to me. Just dawned on me. Take note. They arrive in the capital, and the moment that Zenith sees Geese, she stands up, and she looks like she has joy. Zenith didn't respond to her mom. Zenith did not respond to Claire. At least Rudeus didn't note it. They came in there. He said that she came in there, stood before Zenith, looked at her, foot away. That's my daughter. Rudeus never mentioned Zenith responding. Zenith didn't get up. Got up for Geese on a cart. Geese, an old adventure party member. Claire doesn't move. If there's anything in Zenith that she remembers her mother, it's obviously it wasn't a good thing because she ran out. She went out and did her own thing. She left her mom. She doesn't have a good relationship with her. But even after being reunited with her mother, no response. I think if there's anything there in Zenith's mind about her mother, is that this lady doesn't love me. I'm just a tool. This is expected of me. That's it. But the mother came in there, said she's good health. She's got the baby making tools. A woman's worth is their ability to have children. All that's in her mind right now, all that's in Claire's mind right now is, can we get a baby in that oven? Can we get a bun in that oven? That's all she cares about. Not, is she okay? Not, can we help her? And again, the assumption here is that she just knows that you can't fix this. But even if they could fix it, would she care to even go through the process? Doctor, is there a process that we can help her regain her memories? Is there something we can do that we can get her expression again? Can we get her, maybe we can't get back her memories, but maybe we can have her be able to speak again. Maybe, can she make decisions? Can she be happy? Can she have a life again? Everything that I think anybody that loves somebody that is broken like that is going to think immediately, how can I get them back on their feet? How can I get them have joy again? How can I get them back to having a life? Can they have a job again? Can they have a future? No. Her mind is the family lineage. Her mind is, at least Zenith will have a lineage. She'll provide me a grandchild that will be a Latria. That's all she cares about. That's all she cares about in the scenario. And again, I love the fact that Rudeus right here puts it best, and it's something I've seen as it played out in this chapter, is I can give this. I can give this. I can give this. I understand this. This is their culture. I understand this. I even understand the whole thing about Norn. Whatever. She even gave on that whole thing, so I won that fight, basically. But at this point where she says this, you. No. You. Walk out the door. Again, to what I was saying earlier, this is a prime example of what makes Rudeus so great, is that he is, and you can say that it's a bad thing, but again, it's how I am, so I kind of feel like I agree with it. Give. It doesn't matter. Give. It doesn't matter. Give. It's not worth fighting. Even when he was saying earlier, this is not worth fighting. We're never going to see eye to eye. We might get to know each other. We could probably sit down and have drinks, and then maybe we might do a give and take. He always gives. He's always passive. It's just not worth it. But this, again, family, no. Norn, I'll handle it. Aisha, sit. She's my sister. And when it comes to my mother, hell no. She's coming with me. I'll even expand it more. He can even think about back at home, she's sitting there. My daughter's on her lap. She's super happy. That's enough. That's enough. That's a much better life for her. Just sitting there. Yes, no expression. Not even sure if she'll ever recover. But sitting there with my daughter on her lap. My daughter looking up at her face. It's much better than the idea of her being married off to some random person, brought into a bedroom, laid there, not even knowing why she's there. Some random dude comes in the room. Probably gonna have the butler set her up. That's not a life for her. Not even knowing who that person is, able to communicate to them, tell them yes or no. That's horrible. And again, a relative being okay with that? I don't see anybody. Any right-minded person that's related to somebody would be okay with that happening with their sibling, or their mother, or their father, cousin, or even a stranger. Most people would not be okay with. But a mother, to see her daughter put in that position, all my hopes for this being a mama bear flew up real quick. I watched the Mushoku Monday after reading this segment, and I had to laugh at myself. There's a couple people that watch Mushoku Monday that have not read ahead, so I had to keep my mouth shut a little bit there, but that was and I have the rules on the pinned comments to not talk about anything past the current chapter, and I'm always typically 1 or 2 chapters ahead of Mushoku Monday as we watch it on the premiere. Not that I want people talking about it. That's why I put the pin there. That was definitely didn't call that one. Way off base. Now, there could be a point in which this all changes. There could be a point where I think that she communicated this terribly. Again, she wanted to assert her dominance, and maybe she wasn't planning on pushing it that hard, but she wanted to establish that she had control of the situation. Maybe there's a side of her that will understand that this is a stupid thing to say at some point. But she's going to have to try real hard. To get it back. Every time I watch any discussion, or anytime I watch, there's a lot of badge cam footage and stuff like that of things like this where somebody's got Alzheimer's or just not in their right minds, and there's a cop trying to pursue them or whatever. They're dealing with a situation. It's always when I watch these things, my heart breaks, because it's you got to know how to control these people. You got to learn how to confront these people, because they don't know what's happening. They don't know what you're talking about. They don't know why they're there. They don't know where they are. They don't know what they're going for. They don't know what their future, their past, or anything is. They're lost. And to put them in a position, like Rudeus says here, a human sex doll, to get pregnant, pop a baby out. Interesting, though, that he says, what about my feelings? What do you think the children she'd leave behind would feel? I think with Paul, Rudeus fixed things with him to the point where it affected him emotionally. Because that was obviously the point which he really did change his mind around family. But any moment where it feels like Rudeus is getting closer to Zenith as a mother is a big thing. This hits hard for me. He's literally saying, what about me? What about Zenith's son? Because we haven't had, technically, I don't think we've had the point in which we had the Zenith is my mother. I am Zenith's son. So I'm hoping eventually we get that statement. But yeah, this is tough. I like the fact that of all the things that was unspoken that he can say was said during this conversation, he points out one specific thing. Claire said if Zenith were sane, she'd agree. He said specifically it was like throwing oil onto the flame that was my heart, burning down what remained of his self-control. I clenched my fist and prepared to cast a spell. He doesn't specify why that him off, but for me, it me off, more so because, yes, the understanding of having somebody in a broken state like that and making decisions for them so blatantly and so without care for their own well-being, but it is one of those aspects that you do question. What do you know about my mother? What do you know about her? He could argue at this point that he's known her for longer than her mother has. What do you know what my mother wants? She left you. She wasn't a part of your family anymore. What do you know about Zenith? What do you know about her family? More importantly, what do you know about her damn family? You know nothing of Zenith. You know only her as your daughter that you were pushing all this stuff on. She left you, and now you can make babies out of her. What do you know of her? If she was sane, she'd agree. Bullshit. She's a gray rat now. What she'd agree to is what's best for the gray rats. Her children. Her grandchildren. That's what Zenith would want. She wouldn't agree that she wants to go back with you to some random dude to make a baby. What's so damn fulfilling about that? The other part of this whole thing that kind of pissed me off is obviously, again, taking into account the fact that Zenith can't speak her mind. She can't make a decision here. She doesn't have the capacity to do so. And there's a possibility that she can, it's just that she can't speak the words. And that's always been kind of that's always been the kind of sad thing about situations like this, and my own experience with this kind of stuff is sometimes you wonder if they're in there. If there's somewhere in there. If somewhere in there Zenith is saying, I want to talk to my mom, but I can't. And that could be why she wasn't responding. Maybe she was just the entire time trying to make something work. Again, I've had experience with this. It's heartbreaking as hell. She can't protest the idea of remarrying Paul. Paul is a big part of this. I'm surprised that Rudeus didn't speak up on this. I mean, he speaks up on the worst part of this, and it's just simply the fact of remarrying to have a child. That's enough. It's not like there was the question. It's not like there's a opportunity here for him to really discuss the idea of, but what about Paul? And yes, what does Zenith think about remarrying after losing Paul? There's a lot of people out there. My mom's one of them. The moment they lose their loved one, the idea of remarrying's nowhere in their mind. That was my one. That was my husband. I will never marry again. I will never love another person. This is not Rudeus. This is not Rudeus where he's got multiple wives. Zenith may never love another person. Even if she does regain herself, she may never love another person. She may never want to have another husband. She had Paul. She doesn't want anybody else. Paul was her husband. And the idea of even taking that choice away from her, that she would sleep with another. And it's so funny because it's like, I guess the Millis faith, I guess they're fine with remarriage. I mean, yes, they've stated they can't have multiple husbands, multiple wives, but I guess they're okay with the idea of at least remarrying. And maybe even more so the idea that, well, if they've passed away, even for sure, you can remarry. Like, it's okay for you to remarry if your loved one is dead. But either way, what does Zenith think of that? Is Zenith okay with putting Paul aside and marrying again? Paul screwed up and got with Lilia, but that's probably nowhere in the mind of Zenith to ever do that to Paul. And especially even after Paul's gone, to not be faithful to him. That she would ever even consider getting with somebody else. And again, just based on my experience, I know a lot of people, once their husband or their wife is gone, they'll never, ever remarry. They'll never love another person. That was their one. That was their soulmate. That's the only person that has ever mattered to me. So another thing that makes this really annoying is just that Claire is making that decision for her. No, you're fine. She'll marry you to somebody else. She's a baby maker. That's all she is. And again, in Claire's mind, you don't have a choice. That's all you do. All you do is make babies. All you do is make the next Latria that's going to be in our bloodline. The next thing that we can hold up and say, you produced this. This thing will go out and do great things. We need more amazing knights of Latria. Which is sort of making me wonder if there's something special in the bloodline. We haven't really gotten into any sort of race or family or bloodline being special in some way. Yes, you can say that, like, obviously being the son or daughter of a, immortal demon king probably gives you something there. There's obviously bloodlines that are going to live longer, may possibly be stronger in some way, but like having an innate power of some sort. Does the Latria family have something in their bloodline that is powerful? That would technically explain the idea of her having such pride in their lineage. It could just be not so much just a societal thing, like we need to make sure that everybody thinks that we produce the most pristine warriors and knights, which would come in their strictness, their raising, for pushing them to train, get smarter, like with Norn. You're a failure because you can't pick up this stuff and be brilliant like you should be, because that's the expectation of our bloodlines, is that you have amazing grades and you can do everything. It's almost militarizing your children, putting them in a strict regiment so they can be as good as they possibly can be, not so much that their bloodline produces saint tier level healers or something like that. Like they just innately are really good at this particular spell, or their mana pulls have something, has some sort of aspect, like the Laplace aspect kind of thing, where it's like an extra stat. And again, going for the RPG terms here, like they have a skill or a trait within their bloodline that makes them increase skills or something like that. I'd be curious. I'd be curious if there's something special about a bloodline in the story that's going to be outside, again, that we've already kind of established with, certain races or, again, Demon Kings. But again, if it did, that kind of could explain the idea of, even if she's a broken husk, we can at least produce children that will carry on the bloodline that will be exceptional. But we haven't really kind of shown any signs of that being present with Zenith or with Norn. You can say Rudeus, that he could have possibly gotten something from the bloodline. He's doing really good, but it's been usually mostly through all of his talents plus the Laplace aspect. Zenith was a good healer, but we haven't really got too much insight in her being like special in some way. And again, Norn, unless something comes up here soon, she's been very normal. She's been normal. It is just very fascinating how matter-of-fact Claire was. And again, I really do attribute that to just it being culture. Sadly, culture. But yeah, for those that missed it, that was what I was talking about earlier about the comment that Geese made. I wonder if he knew, like, Latria would do this, and it would be like that aspect of, yes, even if it kills you, protect your mom, save your mom. Like, I think that was probably what he was implying there, which kind of makes me wonder if the man god tipped him in on that situation that he's going to be running into. But it kind of does make me wonder going forward. It does make me wonder if Geese knows that they're not going to give up on this, that Claire is going to come after them. That is definitely something I foresee happening. That while Rudeus is trying to do this stuff with the mercenary band and trying to help Cliff, that on the sideline, there's a possibility that Claire's going to come after Zenith. She's still an asset. She is, and that she might not want to give up on this just on principle. That she might come after Zenith. I wonder that. And I wonder if Geese knows that he's probably going to not want to leave her there, and she's probably going to come after them. Arriving at a bizarre insult, he calmed down a little bit. He also heard his stomach growling. He hadn't eaten anything for lunch, and he could go for anything besides pastries. Big brother? Turning to Aisha, she looked troubled and was fidgeting, as though she didn't know what to say. Aisha. Without a word, he reached out his arms and held her close. She didn't hesitate to sidle right in. He knew why Aisha, Norn, and Lilia dragged their feet so much. He couldn't blame Aisha. Of course she didn't want to relive that. He didn't know what Aisha and Norn had gone through as they grew up with Claire. But now he understood that they must be carrying some awful memories. I'm sorry for bringing you. No, it's fine. But, well, you didn't make your connection, right? Oh, yeah. He was hoping to have the House of Latria help him with the mercenary band. Oh, well. We'll live. I'd rather do it alone than have help from her. He could make connections elsewhere. Maybe ask Cliff to put in a good word to his grandpa. He might not be impressed with him asking for favors already, but it would be payback to Claire. He's like, yeah, I'm joining Cliff now. Screw you guys. Screw you guys. Middle fingers. Screw you. And if that went nowhere, then you just get it done alone. Either way, Rudeus was tired and wanted to get some sleep. Come to think of it, he didn't have a place to stay. It'd be in the middle of the night by the time that he got to the Ventures District and got a room. He didn't want to make Zenith walk that far. I love Rudeus right now. With that, Rudeus decided to go back to Cliff's place. This is an emotionally draining chapter, but we got through it. We got through it. I don't think I blew up too much. I managed to keep myself calm. But yeah, that's... So that makes me think that since he's pretty much cut ties with Claire at this point, It's going to be full-blown, probably setting up the mercenary band right now. And at the same time, Cliff trying to do his thing. And I'm assuming at some point, Rudeus is going to get strongly involved with that whole situation. And what does kind of still suck, I mean, it's going to be less impactful now than ever, is that, yes, eventually that probably means that if Rudeus is going to get involved with this whole thing, and he's probably going to get very connected with the current Pope, that, yeah, I'd imagine at some point he's probably going to go up against Claire. And that no matter how you look at it, even if she said all this nasty stuff, is going to be a tough thing. Because again, no matter what, that's still Zenith's mother. Even though she is an absolute dirtbag right now, and I have a massive disdain for her and how she'd want to treat Zenith, but it's still going to suck because it's still his grandmother. That's one of those tough things to deal with. Rudeus has no connection to her. It's no skin off his back. But at the same time, it's still Zenith's mother. So there might be a connection there. I mean, if he had sympathy for Zenoa and Pax, of course he's going to have a little sympathy for Claire and Zenith. But yeah, I do like the fact that right at the very end there, he does acknowledge, God dang, I'm sorry, Aisha, I brought you into that. Again, this was a brief moment. This was a mere moment that he was in that room with Claire. Aisha and Norn, especially, and even Lilia, they had to deal with that for years. That's got to be a lot of painful memories they went through. If this was painful enough for him in one visit, imagine what they went through for years. So I like the fact that he at least acknowledges to Aisha, I'm sorry I brought you here. I really shouldn't have. But anyways, that is chapter 8. I'm gonna go get some rest. I'm gonna go get some rest before I continue reading this series and doing the edits on this one, because gosh dang, that just got me off bad. As someone who has, again, dealt with somebody that has loss of memory and stuff like that, this stuff gets personal with me. This stuff gets really personal with me. At this point, having dealt with 2 people in my life very close to me that have dealt with this kind of stuff, it pissed me off. So it was really harsh to get through this whole segment, and I'm glad he got Zenith out of there. I was literally going to get pissed if Rudeus left her behind. He made the right call here. Again, this chapter, the amount of Rudeus W's in this chapter is through the roof. And again, I fully acknowledge that Rudeus is always passive unless it's family. When it's family, he doesn't give. And I give him massive credits for that. I can take the whipping, but don't touch my family. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this Mushoku Mondays. As always, thank you guys so much for dropping by for the premiere. Hey, chat, hope you guys are doing well. Thank you guys so much for dropping by for the premiere. Thanks for all the kind words, all the support, all the super chats, all of the memberships, all that stuff. Greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate you guys' support all the time. It means a great deal to me as we go through this journey together, and looking forward to the next premiere as always along with you guys. But until the next Mushoku Monday, that hopefully won't me off as bad, y'all take care. Claire. But with all that said, let's just dive into it. Chapter 7, Cliff's Homecoming. But she made it. So I left her to continue her study. She may be wearing a maid and hedges trimmed into weird shapes. And hedges trimmed to weird shapes.